It's been a really long time since I've been in front of the camera making a video for you guys. And this video is actually my husband's idea. It's also sort of just putting some feelers out for what you guys like. I will do a proper podcast here at some point. I've been waiting until I have something really cool to show you. I've mainly been working on really small projects like cowls and mittens and, the pumpkins. So I haven't really been working on anything super exciting or big. I have one project in the works. I've been working on it for months and I'm only just now starting to get to the end. So I think once I get that done and I have another project on the needles, then I think I'll start making a podcast again. So this is kind of a mixture of a podcast and a haul video. I don't think I've ever done just like a dedicated haul video before. These are all from big box stores, but but I have some exciting plans, so I wanted to share them with you guys. I bought a big haul of yarn in like July when I first started making videos again, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna use all of it. I don't have a project for everything, but I have them at least in the works. And once I got all those projects settled and every bit of yarn has something going for it right now, or finished, like, okay, now I can go get more, which is really exciting. I love being able to go yarn shopping, obviously. So I'll start out with the most recent. So if you follow my channel, you might have seen a couple of the pumpkin patterns that I put out. So those are like my fall decorations. Obviously I have like the stockinette ones, and I'll probably film a couple more over here because I have them all over my shelves in my living room. I have a bunch of these really tiny pumpkins and I was thinking of making a garland. So if you want to see a video for that, I've been contemplating making one. I'm not as much of a Halloween person as I am a Christmas person. So I've been writing down ideas for Christmas decorations for a couple weeks now, and I'm really excited actually. They just keep like coming into my mind, more really fun ones. So that's what I went shopping for a couple days ago. I had to run some errands while Johnny had band practice, and I was like, you know what? There's all this Christmas colored yarn, why not? So these are my Christmas yarns, or what I have so far. I wanted to start small, and then as I finish those, I can get more and make more projects. I used a bunch of this Bernat Softy Chunky to make my pumpkins, and I actually really liked it. It's very nice to work with. Sometimes yarn that's too chunky bothers my hands and my wrists and causes some pain, but this didn't do that for me at all. So I got 2 reds, 2 whites, and an off-white, and my plan currently is to make some trees. I've seen them in stores already. They have these like, I don't know what they're made out of, if it's plastic or what, but it's made out of some like rigid material, and they're basically just giant cones. They don't look like traditional trees, like traditional Christmas trees, but they just look more like minimalist, I guess. So my idea was to make a few of those, and it just clicked with me, honestly. I was looking at it, I was like, it's just a giant hat. It's just a hat that the decreases are spread out more, so it creates more of like a long stocking. Now I haven't figured out quite how I'm gonna get them to stand up. I don't know if I'm going to just knit them really tightly so that they're just really rigid and they stand up on their own, or you could stuff them, but I feel like that would use a lot of stuffing. I don't really want them to have a filled shape. I was also thinking you could do some kind of structure with cardboard or wire or pipe cleaners or something, just a little bit of structure without looking filled. I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna do with that, but I got 5 different ones so I could try. And then I might take 2 of these, so I have an off-white and a red. I was watching a Fruity Knitting podcast episode a couple days ago, and Madeline is knitting a pair of like, I think Scandinavian style mittens. This thought didn't come to mind with that, but I think they showed a picture of one of the really famous knitting patterns that has little houses around the cuff. I also have been following someone that just traveled around Norway and showed pictures of the houses that mitten pattern is kind of based off of. And on top of that, I have decorations in my living room that I use for the fall, which I like blue, and they're little Scandinavian style houses like that, or at least the decorations look like it. And then I have Christmas ones that hold stockings as well. And I was like, I want something like I have here, I'll show you a picture of them, but Christmassy. So what I was thinking, now I don't know how well this is gonna work, because again, I don't know how I'm gonna make it sit up, but I was thinking I could make a 3-dimensional knitted house like that. Really simple, just mainly one color, which I'm going to do red, and then a couple of windows made in this off-white color. Now, I don't know if I'm going to add in the windows later or if I'm just going to do like intarsia. I haven't really thought about it, but I want to make a pattern for that. Would intarsia be too difficult? I feel like if it's in such a little area, it might not be too hard. But I could also create two options, one intarsia for more experienced knitters and one where you duplicate stitch with a sewing needle afterwards. I'm not really sure. So I got all those to make, and then I got this big twist twinkle. So this is also going to be a tree, but it's sparkly. And a lot of the ones I've seen that are like, you know, at Pottery Barn or whatever, that are the actual non-knitted versions are sparkly. Personally, I'm not a fan of things that are sparkly, but I know a lot of people are, so I wanted to see how this would work up. I've used a lot of the regular big twist that looks, you know, like this. They can get at Joann's, and it's pretty nice actually. It's not the softest, but it's not scratchy. I know that's not a glowing recommendation, but also the sparkly one I think is a little bit scratchier because you have this thread of sparkly, well, thread wound around the yarn, so it makes it a little scratchier. While I was looking at Joann's, I was like, I really wanted to make a couple chunky cardigans or chunky sweaters, but chunky yarn can be very expensive, and I haven't knit very many of them to know how much yardage I would need. So I was looking for yarns online, and you know, they're going for $10 a ball with 50 yards in it, and that's gonna be a lot. So I was trying to find something more budget friendly. The Bernat Softy Chunky is pretty good. It's 108 yards per, I think, $5, which is not terrible, especially if you could get them on sale. I always forget to download the app when I go to Joann's, so I never get the coupons. So I saw this. It's, I'm trying to find a nicer looking skein. It's called Bernat Forever Fleece. So I've never seen it before, and I think it's supposed to be for blankets, but it feels really nice, actually. It just feels like a one ply. It's 100% polyester, but this skein has 200 yards in it, and I was thinking I could knit it fairly loose. So I have 3 of these, so I only have 600 yards. Again, I don't know, I don't knit chunky things very often because usually they hurt my hands, but I have 3 of them. I'm hoping this is enough. I wanted a 4th just to be safe, but they were all out. That's kind of the thing I noticed with Joann's. I hadn't gone in there for like a couple years, and then just recently I've gone in a few times, and every time I've gone in, you know, with a couple weeks in between, they have different things for sale. It's very confusing and hard to find like repeats. I can find them online, but in the store that I go to, they like just stop carrying it. It's like they change out what's in stock or what's popular, which isn't helpful if you're trying to write a pattern because you want the yarn to be around for a while. Especially if I'm writing patterns, you know, a month or 2 in advance, like the Christmas ones. Obviously the Softy Chunky is going to be around for a while. You know, I want to make a cardigan with this Forever Fleece. I have no idea if this is going to be around. It almost feels like they're just testing out different kinds of yarn, and if they don't do well, they don't bring them back. I just got those a couple days ago. More of in a festive mood. It's a little bit early for Christmas, but I have a lot of Christmas pattern ideas, and I want to get them done soon so that I can release them here on the channel leading up to Christmas. I don't know when to start that. They're really simple, small things, but with the amount of things that I have ideas for, I'm gonna have to start putting them out like close to Thanksgiving, so I gotta get a move on. I'm a little bit burnt out. The pumpkins were a last minute idea. I've just gotten really into home knitting recently. I saw somebody make a stockinette pumpkin. She didn't do any decreases or increases like I've done here. It was just a tube that she tied, and I liked the idea, but you know, it bunched at the top and the bottom, so I wanted to kind of fix it with the increases and decreases, and from this idea it spiraled into the slip stitch one and the garter one, and I had a ribbed pattern as well, but honestly the pumpkin patterns have taken it out of me. They took way more work than I was expecting, and so I was like, you know what, scrapping that, I can do it next year. I'm too tired. This is the bulk of the haul that I had a couple weeks ago. I was sick and I wasn't able to leave the house for a couple weeks. Bored out of my mind. I had nothing to do but swatch, of course. So I'll show that to you guys after I show you the haul. But I have a million swatches and projects ready to get started or ready to finish. I sounded like a pack-a-day smoker because I was sick. And I was like, okay, I can't record. So all I did was swatch and plan out projects. I kid you not, I started 15 projects. And I already had some in the works, so I have close to 20 laid out in my office, ready to progress. So it's not the time to be going shopping necessarily, but I was so pent up in the house, and I'd used up my entire bag of yarn from the summer, and I was like, you know what? I need to get out and I need to go be creative. This is the result of that. So I went to Hobby Lobby, Joann's, and Michael's. I don't think I got anything from Michael's. Their yarn selection, at least in my area, is subpar at best. Our Joann's just got upgraded a couple years ago. They have quite a big selection now. The bulk of this, though, is definitely from Hobby Lobby. If I had to pick one to shop with for the rest of my yarn buying days, it would have to be Hobby Lobby. It's where my designing started. I was a super broke college student when I started knitting, or when I started designing patterns. And I kept trying to buy yarn from Joann's, but everything is so expensive there. And this was before they had some of their new lines. So like they have their Big Twist line, which pretty decent yarn. Their worsted weight, just like Big Twist, I don't know, classic, is pretty decent. I think it's like $5 too. So they hadn't come out with that when I first started designing, but I discovered at Hobby Lobby that they had their I Love This yarn. And this is where it all started for me. Honestly, this yarn is very soft. It's acrylic, and I had been used to buying really budget acrylic yarns that were very scratchy, and I hated it. It's like, there's gotta be something better, and I stumbled across this, which they have in like a million colors. It's $5 and you get a ton of yardage. I think it's 355 yards. Yeah, 355 yards. It's a 200-gram ball. That's crazy for $5, and a lot of times they have their yarn 40% off. It almost seems like it's every other week they have it 40% off. This is how I started designing and really got into it, was being able to afford to buy a sweater's worth or a blanket's worth full of yarn for like $30. I got a ton of colors of this yarn. I got the sun gold and the orchid just for messing around with swatches, or I always like to have one or two skeins around just to knit up a small idea, or sometimes it's like, man, I wonder if this works out, if this math checks out. Like I made so many tiny, tiny little pumpkins with test yarn just to see if the math worked out. These are just for testing or for teaching. I'm also going to put out a lot more tutorials on techniques and stitches and stuff, and this yarn works really well. It's not too shiny, so it shows up really well on camera. I've swatched for a lot of cowls and mittens and a few hats. So I had some variation with accessories there, but I wanted something different. So I noticed some of you were picking up a quite old blanket pattern. I was like, you know what? I haven't made a blanket, like a non-baby blanket, but just a blanket in a long time. So I will most likely knit up the baby blanket version because it just takes way too long otherwise. But I'll probably write it for multiple sizes. So I picked up some color combos. This one is a little bit outside my comfort zone. I'm not a huge pink person, but I really love this maroon. I just thought these looked really great together, so that's gonna be a baby blanket pattern. I really have been wanting to play with color. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna do stripes or find a really pretty design that's easy and do stripes of different colors, or if I'm gonna do mosaic. I've worked a little bit with mosaic recently and I actually really enjoy it. But on a big project like a blanket, because you kind of have to knit similar to brioche, like you have to knit each row twice almost because there's so many slip stitches involved. So I don't know if it'll work for that. But speaking of mosaic, I got these three to make a cowl because I have really been enjoying cowls, but I wanted something a little bit more challenging and engaging. A really simple cowl pattern is great if you're doing something social or you're watching something, but sometimes you want sometimes a little bit of challenge. I originally thought these two colors, the green and the purple, looked really great together, but they're missing something, so I added the white. So I think these look really great together, and I'm gonna do something mosaic or striped with this. I'm not a big fan of stranded color work, so I most likely won't include that. It's something I really need to practice, because I've had a few requests over the years to make tutorials for stranded color work, but I am so bad at it, like really bad at it. I want to make tutorials for you guys for things that I feel fairly confident with, and I really don't with stranded color work. I can never get my tension right, and I'm probably not doing it enough. I've knit maybe 4 color work projects. That's not enough to get good at something. especially something that takes practice with tension. I feel like something difficult like brioche is pretty easy to pick up because there's a rhythm to it. There's not much of a tension problem. Learning to knit colorwork is a lot like learning to knit in general, trying to learn how to hold the needles and hold the yarn. In this case, holding 2 or 3 strands at a time. I actually don't remember what these are all for. I think these 3 go together. So I'm pretty sure I got these with another blanket pattern in mind. I'm not always the best at putting color combos together. Like I think the pink, maroon, and cream go really well together, but a very natural pick. These 3 are all they're all pretty drab colorways. So as I'm seeing them here, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about it. So I'll probably just play around with it, swatch, and see what happens. But the original plan was to have a blanket. I have a couple more. I made a baby blanket pattern out of this. Another thing that Hobby Lobby Yarn specializes in my opinion, is cotton. They have a cotton version of I Love This Yarn called I Love This Cotton, which I've made countless baby blankets out of and love. It is just butter on your hands when you're knitting it, and it just works out so beautifully. If I'm knitting a baby blanket, it's most likely gonna be in that. But I found this a couple months ago and decided to give it a try, and I made a baby blanket out of it, and I'm intending on giving it to a friend. It's really, really soft. It changes colors for you, so it gives a little bit of detail while you're knitting it, but also looks gorgeous in the end. So I'm gonna have to find a beautiful stitch to make a blanket out of this. Now, if my friend ends up having a girl, I might give her what I make with this. Right now, the other one is a little bit more neutral, so that's more of a safe option. I'm not sure if they're gonna find out beforehand or not. Could always give them 2. I don't know if that's too much or if that's a nice thing to do. So then I got this. It's called the Soft Standard. It's in my favorite color, this beautiful olive green. So the colorway is Fern Leaves, and I'm trying to remember why I picked this up. I think I just picked it up and wanted to make something out of it because it's soft. But now I don't remember what I was gonna knit with it. It had to have been a cowl. This is a very, how do I put this? It's a very limp yarn. It will not hold its shape at all. So a hat or mittens, I don't think are gonna work. It also looks like it might pill. I think what I might have been thinking was they have so many options at the store, and I eventually want to do, my top 10 favorites from this store and this store, and that's going to take a really long time to compile experience with all these different kinds of yarn. So I already have, the regular I Love This Yarn, I Love This Cotton, and the Sugar Wheel Cotton, but this time I'm trying their Soft and Sleek Chunky and their Soft Standard. So these are 2 I can potentially add to the list if I like them. So I think that's what this was. It's just, let's just see what happens when we knit it up. It's in my favorite color. I'll knit it into a scarf. Christmas is coming anyway, right? You can never have enough knitted gifts if you have extras. If you're a Joann's fan, I'm sure you'll have heard of their Woolies Thick and Quick yarn. This yarn was massive a few years ago. When I first started designing, I feel like everybody knit with this yarn. And it was always too expensive. It's like $8 or something, I think. And it's 106 yards. So you can make like a single skein project, like a hat. I'm guessing you could make a scarf. Oh, it says a normal scarf takes 2 balls. So a cowl would probably take like 1. This was all the rage when I first started designing. And I always thought it was a little bit too expensive for me. And I'm not a huge fan of wearing it. I'm a little bit sensitive to wool. So it's 80% acrylic, 20% wool, but the wool, I don't think is super nice or something. Because for me, it just feels a little bit rough. Now, if it's a big bulky hat, I think it would be fine. A pair of mittens, you could line them. But if it's something up close to the skin, it's not for me. So I never got into this very much, but winter is coming, Christmas is coming. I wanted something that I could make really quick and easy patterns with. This is kind of what a lot of people consider the gold standard when it comes to big box stores. So I was like, you know what? It's been years. I'll give it another shot. I don't know what I'm going to make with it. It might be a hat. It might be a pair of mittens. We'll see. It's a really beautiful color. I did want to make a tutorial on how to line mittens after you knit them. So maybe this is what I do. I knit some mittens with this, and then I show you how to line them without a sewing machine because mine's broken. And then this Big Twist Natural Blend. I think this is slightly cheaper. Maybe not. It might be about the same price. It's basically the Big Twist equivalent, which I believe is Joann's own line. Ooh, this one says that you need 2 skeins to make a hat, but they have about the same yardage. They're only 1 yard off from each other. Oh, but they weigh a lot different. Interesting. So the Woolies Thick and Quick is thicker than the Big Twist Natural Blend. I thought they were going to be interchangeable, but they're not. Okay. Well, now I don't know what I'm going to do with this because my idea was a hat, but if it says it takes 2 to make a hat, we'll find out. I got 2 colors, a pink and a gray. I don't know why I got the pink. I'm going to be real honest with you. This is not my color. I should have written it down as I was buying it. I will definitely find something to do with this because apart from Christmas yarn, I'm not doing another haul until this is all used. Unless it's to finish a project or to finish Christmas knitting. So we're gonna have to find something to do with these. Could you put them together? I don't know if these colors go together. That is the entirety of my haul. That was probably pretty long, so I apologize if that wasn't any fun to watch. I'm just kind of testing the waters, seeing what you guys like. I'm now gonna show you guys some of my plans, swatches, works in progress, kind of like a mini podcast, but more like these are the things that I have in the works or have ideas for. Like I said, I was cooped up for a couple of weeks. I couldn't record, I couldn't leave the house. So I just swatched like crazy. So I got this Big Twist Velour. So it's kind of hard to tell because it's a really dark color. Matches my couch actually. I got this over the summer. It really caught my eye because it's one of my favorite colors, obviously. I'm a big fan, especially velvet. Our couch is a green velvet couch. So this goes perfectly with it. So I saw this and I was like, this would be really fun to make like a really, really simple wrap. So I made a swatch, try and hold it up against the white wall so you can see it. It's very dark, I apologize. So this is what it looks like. I used US, this says 13, but I have a feeling I swapped this out and I used 15s. And my idea was just to make a really simple garter like wrap. So I knit this up and as you can see from the clips I've shown you already, it is very hard to see it on camera. It's a super dark color. I chose it because it's my favorite and I thought it would look really pretty in pictures. But as soon as I got it in front of a camera, I was like, oh, this isn't gonna work. It's way too dark. You can't see what's going on. I might still try and just bump up the exposure so you can see more. But I went back to Joann's. This was, you know, like a month after I bought the yarn. I went back looking for a different color, a lighter color. And they didn't have it. This is what I'm talking about. It's like they cycle through yarns. I don't get it. So they don't carry it anymore. I think they have it online, but it's such a hassle to have to order it online and pay for shipping. I saw this instead, the Bernat Velvet, and it's in a much lighter color. I was like, this is perfect. This will show it off. I thought these were the same. When I bought this, I was like, oh, perfect. They have it in a lighter color. And then I got it home and I was like, wait a minute. They're different brands. And the Big Twist is chunkier. So now I'm like, okay, I made this swatch, and now you tell me this is much thinner. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might try and match gauge, and it'll just be looser in this, and then in the pattern tell you you can use either. Just change needle sizes depending. I'm envisioning like New Year's Eve or a Christmas outfit, something kind of fancy. I don't dress up for Christmas, but some people do. Where you're wearing like a dress or something nice, and you want just a really cute, simple kind of dressy shawl. This is pretty cheap yarn. I think would give that really kind of dressy look. That was my goal with it, but I'm a little bit stumped because they're not the same. This is the Big Twist Value yarn that I was talking about earlier. This is kind of like the Big Twist Joann's equivalent to Hobby Lobby's I Love This Yarn, but this yarn is 380 yards, so it has more yardage than the other one. It's not as soft. I think they're about the same price. I believe they're both about $5, but the I Love This yarn is just softer. But I didn't know that when I bought this. So I got a few colors of this, and I originally was gonna make each of these into their own separate shawl, or sorry, their own separate cowl. I got really into mosaic color work, and I made this swatch. These are not colors I would probably typically put together. They're both very rich colors. And I think in a full project, like a full jacket or something, it'd be too much. But in a cowl, I think it'll be a pop of color. So this is gonna be a really fun cowl, very easy. You're only working one color at a time. It's the beauty of mosaic knitting. Counting the rows on that was very difficult. I felt like a beginner knitter again. Next up is a mitten pattern. I designed a pattern that I'll show you in a minute because I've actually knit the swatches and fully written the pattern for them. I just have to record the tutorials. And it got me really into knitting mittens. I tried a few years ago and it didn't click. I couldn't wrap my head around it, but for some reason, I knit the first pair and I was like, this is super easy. I don't know what happened, but this is a different kind. So this is the kind where you put waste yarn in and then you take it out and you have your thumb stitches to start knitting. Never done it before. So I made a swatch. It's not a particularly large swatch, but I don't have a ton of yarn. It came out really beautiful. This is also mosaic. This is a 3-color mosaic linen stitch. So I swatched, which a 3-color linen mosaic stitch takes forever. It's so pretty. I couldn't help myself. So I don't know if anyone's gonna wanna knit this because of how much time it takes. So I knit the swatch and something happened. I knit it as if I was knitting in the round, but it's the kind where you knit flat and then you slide back to the beginning and keep a long float in the back. You never turn your work, so it's like you're knitting in the round. But I knit this mitten magic loop method. Same size needles, but the mitten came out too small. I don't really know what I'm doing wrong because I blocked the heck out of this. I wet blocked it and then I stretched it and pinned it perfectly. A little bit bigger than it was supposed to be, so because I knew it would shrink in a little bit. So I don't really know what happened though. Like when I put it on, maybe it's because my thumb's in there and I need to make the thumb. There's a couple things I need to tweak for sure. I'm also not crazy about the crown decreases or the top decreases. I finished this one, like this mitten, a couple weeks ago now, and I've just been a little stuck because I don't have a ton of yarn left. I'm using Rauma Phenol Part 2, which I got when I went to Germany a couple of years ago. Almost 3 years ago now, crazy. And these are the only balls of each of this color that I think I have. I don't really know. I need to weigh these. I think they're only 25-gram skeins. I could be wrong. They could be 50. They have to be 50, right? The point is, I can't read it. I don't know anything about it. That one was a little bit disheartening because it's a project I'm really excited about and I love it. But it took a really long time to knit the mitten. But it's such a small project, you know, you'd think faster gratification. But I really love it, so I'm gonna come back to it and start on a second one. And if I have to, I can undo this for the yarn. So next, this is only a piece, and this one's gonna be a long time till it's out. I might even wait until spring. But this is a panel to a cardigan. I started this in July. I had ambitious plans to have all of this done and written by, mid-August. It doesn't always work like that. We had a death in the family in the beginning of August, and also a couple weeks later, a wedding, and other things came up, and it was just a crazy month. And so this has been sitting. I have a back panel, and this is my second front panel. So honestly, I just need to seam and do the sleeves. I haven't explained what this is. This is gonna be a cardigan, a cotton cardigan. Obviously, you could make it with anything, but the goal was to have it be kind of spring or summer-like. And this was gonna be a new idea that I was gonna test out on you guys. I don't really have the option to tech edit and test knit my patterns like I did a couple years ago. That's why I've been sticking with really simple things just to kind of ease my way back into it. And if it goes well, then upgrade to more involved patterns and get them tech edited and everything. I don't have my test knit group anymore, so I'll have to figure that out. It's not something I'm interested in doing right now. I'm gonna hopefully tackle that maybe next summer or something. But what I was thinking of in the meantime was creating kind of a recipe or a guideline. So what I mean by that is give you all the tools, all the equations to do all your own math. Here's how to measure yourself. Input your measurements onto this page. And then put your measurements with your gauge into all these equations. I'll leave you fill in the blank stuff pretty much. Once you've filled in all the blanks and answered all the questions, then you're ready to knit it. It's not a pattern written with 10 sizes and you just pick one and follow it. You have to put in a little bit of effort in the beginning. It wouldn't be too hard. You knit a gauge swatch and pick your measurements. And then you just fill in the blanks. So I've made kind of the template for it, but I put it on the back burner because I was just getting too tired of it. And it's almost November. So I don't really think we need a cotton cardigan right now. So I'm gonna work on some more timely things for Christmas and gift knitting. And then once the new year has rolled around, start working on this. So I've got some swatches, just a few, just a few, and the rest of my, or nearly the rest of my ongoing projects. The one that I will probably jump back into next week after I have a weekend break from the pumpkins is a Christmas gift knitting idea that I had. So I have a Pound of Love, which is a yarn I've never used before. Again, I'm trying to use different kinds of yarn from different popular stores so that I can eventually, after a long time of working with different kinds, I can eventually come up with like my top 10 picks from the store. I really don't want to, give it half of my attention and just quickly feel around the store and tell you which ones feel the best. I want to work with them and be able to give you pretty solid opinions on the yarns. So this was another one. And I also just had the idea when I saw this. It's like, I want to see if I can make 3 patterns with 1 ball of yarn. I believe Pound of Love, that was fun. Yeah, Pound of Love is just $10, which if I can get 3 projects out of that at least, that's amazing. I might be able to get way more than that. So it's a worsted weight, which has over 1,000 yards. It's a 454 gram ball of yarn. It's giant. So my goal is to make a cowl, a hat, and a pair of mittens. And they're all using the same stitch. My hat is mostly done. I hadn't fully figured out the crown decreases, but now I think I have. Sorry if I'm shaking every time I show you something. I'm leaning over this table and I have to like stabilize my core in order to hold myself up while I'm leaning over. So this uses, I don't even remember the stitch. It's a really common stitch. I found it in one of my stitch dictionaries. Really simple. It adds a lot of texture, but it's just a really, really simple stitch, perfect for beginners or anybody really. It's just really easy and pretty mindless. And once you like wrap your head around what it looks like, you can do it without looking at a pattern. This is my test mitten. This is why I have a couple balls of that. I love this yarn, so I can make stuff like this. This, again, was my first real mitten. I had attempted it a couple times. I've never successfully designed a mitten. I've knit one following a pattern, and I didn't understand a word of it as I was knitting it. So my test one, as you can tell, is stained, and it has a different, just a plain stockinette thumb, which I didn't end up going with. I spilled my drink a couple times on my desk, just like a little bit of it, and I had this handy and I knew it was not going to be the final project and I probably wasn't going to rip it out, so I was like, okay, I'll just mop it up with this. I have one of each size of the mittens. So I have the women's and the men's. Typically women have narrower hands and then you'll just knit to the length that you want. So I'm still tweaking it. I feel like my problem with mittens so far is that I'm not knitting them tall enough. I'm not accounting for how much of a slope it is at the top. They just always feel like a little bit, like there's too much fabric here. They should come down further and then go up a little taller. So I need to troubleshoot that a little bit. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'll probably knit a couple more test ones. So I'm gonna make a cowl in addition to the mittens. I still have so much yarn left. It's possible that you could make a cowl both sizes of the hat and both sizes of the mittens. It's entirely possible that you could knit a ton of gifts with one ball, which is incredible. It's not the softest yarn, at least for the hat and the mittens. It doesn't matter too much, especially since I'm going to teach you how to line the mittens anyway. So this is similar to the cardigan pattern. This is something that I started in July and had lofty goals to finish by mid-August. I'll have to show you this yarn. So this is a tank top, really perfect for November, isn't it? I guess if you're in the southern hemisphere it is, but this is a tank top idea that I had in the summer, and I was like, yeah, I can get it done in time to release before fall. And then August happened, and no, I don't. I have it written down for the pattern, but I don't remember the yarn off the top of my head. But I think it's 50 wool, 50 cotton. So it's going to be a really simple tank top. Interesting straps. I'm not going to give it away until I work more on it, but pretty easy for beginners. And this was also going to be that like recipe style where I give you all the tools and the equations and you just fill in the blanks. And then I walk you through it with your inputted data, if that makes sense. This one I'm really excited for. It's on my docket to record this week so I can knit on it. I have done the ribbing and I have not been able to get to the stitch pattern. This is using Yarn Bee Must Be Merino, which it's in the colorway white and olive. So far all I've done is the ribbing. I borrowed the needles for another project, so I'll have to fix that. So that's one project that I'm really excited for. I really love the way the swatch looks. It was a little bit difficult to measure. All these mosaic patterns are really hard to measure the row gauge of because you do a lot of slip stitches. So a stitch can be used for 2 different rows, but only look like it was used once. It confused me so much when I was trying to make this. So I have some like threaded pieces in here to kind of show where 4 inches is. But that's gonna be a cowl. And then if I like it, maybe even a hat. I'm a huge fan of it. Big, big fan, especially the colors. I think they're really beautiful. So this goes back in my stack. So after I had used up all of the yarn that I bought over the summer, I couldn't exactly send Johnny to go yarn shopping for me. So I had a bunch of like half skeins of yarn in fingering weight. And I was like, you know what would be really fun? Playing with color and doing a little bit of fading, but in something really simple. Shawls are really fun, but they're also extremely time intensive. They use a lot of yarn and they take a lot of work to design as well. So I wanted to make some cowls. So I'll show you my swatches for those. So you can tell they're giant swatches and they're all knit in the round. So you have all these tails. It's just like a massive creature right here. This is a really beautiful stitch. I love it. I'm actually incorporating it into 2 different kinds of patterns. No, 3. Okay, so I'm making a cowl and it's gonna be this stitch and one other stitch like it that's gonna be used to kind of blend the colors. So it's gonna be knit in like one color, blending, one color, blending, one color. I don't have the colors on me. I think they're all packed away so that I can remember what goes with what. So I'll show that to you when I finish them in the next real podcast, but you just see how this drapes. I don't know if you can tell, but it lays beautifully. As I just said, I'm not doing shawls. I am doing shawls. I have a shawl for that in the works as well. I had a faded set of yarn that someone gave me to knit a Lofoten, which is a pattern of mine. I already have like 2 or 3 of those and I was going to make one with it, but honestly, it's calling my name. It's really beautiful yarn and it's in colors that I don't usually wear very much of. It's in yellows. And I thought that would be way more fun, at least for me personally, in a shawl. So I'm going to do something similar to this cowl, but in a shawl form. And again, I only have half skeins, third skeins, a little bit of yarn left for each of these for the cowls. I don't think it'll take much. And it's all fingering weight knit with like size 3, 4, or 5 needles, which is kind of small. It's not for everybody, but if you want to knit this in worsted, you totally could. You just have to change the cast on amount. Pretty easy. So this one here, a little bit of a monster, is another cowl. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do 3 sections of color with a fading sequence in between them. Same with this blue one. I didn't really get to show this to you up close. I don't know if you can see it. I apologize. You can't. But once it's knitted up, you'll definitely see it. I think I only have one more project that I'm going to show you right now. I made the biggest noob mistake ever. So I knit 2 swatches, right? And I knit them with different needle sizes and different cast on amounts. And I didn't keep track of the needle sizes. So I know which one I like best, but I don't know what needle size I used. It was, such a noob mistake. But the nice thing is I'm making a shawl. I can cast on, and if I don't like the way it looks, I can switch needle sizes, rip out, start again. It's not going to matter too much because if it ends up being slightly too big, that's okay. As long as it's not crazy loose, we're fine. Now this is a new to me yarn, which I instantly fell in love with. So it's Lion Brand Nubu, which is 100% lyocell. So it's made from plants. And it has 157 yards per 85 grams in a worsted weight. Although I don't know if I'd call this a worsted weight. It feels more like a DK. Yeah, I got like 7 or 8 of these in the colorway Walnut. It's kind of like this really, really beautiful dusty purple with like brown undertones. It's beautiful. I really have enjoyed knitting the swatches with it. It feels so silky, smooth and buttery on your hands. That's probably one of my favorite upcoming projects. It's going to be just, I think, an asymmetrical triangle shawl. So you cast on a large amount and you decrease into a triangle. I have not figured out the decrease pattern. It's not something I excel in, to decrease in lace or in kind of a complex stitch pattern. I get questions quite often on here actually in comments like, how do you increase in this stitch? And I'm like, I don't know. I had someone ask me that about, a herringbone stitch or a lace stitch the other day, and I was like, I don't know. I wish I could help you, but I have no idea. That would take me like days of troubleshooting to figure out. It hasn't clicked for me yet. I think for some people, they can look at a stitch and be like, okay, if I graph this out, I know exactly how to decrease it. I'm not that kind of person yet. That's why I'm going to start knitting lots of different patterns. Like I really want to be able to knit a raglan pattern or a yoke pattern really easily without it being such like a huge process. And I think the reason it is a big process now is because I haven't done it enough. It's one of those things where it's like I'm expecting myself to be very good, but I haven't practiced a lot. How am I supposed to be really good at it? Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this entertaining and interesting. If you did, please let me know in the comments. I'm just kind of putting out feelers here to see what you guys like apart from tutorials and patterns. So you can tell me in the comments if there's something that you would like to see from me, types of videos, patterns perhaps, or even tutorials. Is there a stitch that you'd like to suggest or a technique other than stranded color work, because I'm not fully there yet? I'll try and get some practice in this winter so that I can teach you, but I'm not there yet. Anyway, I'm rambling. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'll see you in the next video.